All right, we're going back to 13.2. Today we're not meeting. Just going to be covering mostly the compound interest problems. I'm going to allow you to try and work on some of the B problems. Again, remember, on all the problems here, they work with the square root property. So let's get started. We did cover this in the last PowerPoint, 2 PowerPoints ago when we covered 13.2. So if you remember it, you can just go right to the homework. All right, so let's go back to annual compound interest formula. Remember, here's the formula where A stands for the amount in the account, the total amount in the account. P is the principal or your starting amount. Either basically this has to do with when we are borrowing money from the bank or when I'm investing money. So principal would be what I originally borrowed or what I originally invested. Say my $500 that I'm going to invest, okay? The math is basically the same if you borrow or if you're doing interest. R stands for your interest rate. It usually comes in the form of a decimal because it's a percentage. And T stands for time. And when we say time, it's in number of years. It's annualized. All right, so if we have $500 is invested for 2 years and the interest is compounded annually, what is the interest rate? What interest rate is needed to increase the total account to 540? So let's start with our equation. And let's look at what they give us. 500. They give us 2 years. And they give us 540. And so this is money. So 540 is the total in the account. That is the A. 500 is what they started with, so that's my principal. And 2 years is my time. So the only thing that's missing once I substitute in 540, 540 is equal to 500 times 1 plus R, and it's to the second power for 2 years. So right away I'm going to divide by 500. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. So I'm going to divide both sides by 500. And then right away you see we can reduce it. And then I know that 2 goes into 54 27 times, and 2 goes into that 25 times. Is equal to 1 plus R. And now notice your square is isolated. Okay? Your square is isolated. I just basically did that in one step. So now it's time to root both sides. So I'm going to root both sides. First I'm flipping it around. Now I root both sides once my square is isolated. I've got the 1 plus R squared alone. And now what we have is the square root of 27 over the square root of 25. Square root of 25 is 5. And then I'm going to get the absolute value of R plus 1. Right? So R plus 1 is equal to the square root of 27 over 5. Now, I would have done this slightly different. I would have found the value of 27. You should likely be using a graphing calculator. Okay, so I think I would, instead of simplifying the radical and saying 3 rad 3, because that's right, what my PowerPoint does is they make this the square root of 9 times the square root of 3, so that becomes a 3 rad 3. I just go right away to the square root of 27 is basically 5.1961524 and then we're dividing that by 5. So I would just take that answer. You've got your R plus 1 is equal to plus or minus, and then I would divide it by 5, and we get R plus 1 equals plus or minus 1.03. Oops. I'm going to cut it off. Now is the point that I'm going to estimate. 0.39. I'm going to cut it off right there because it's 0.10 Or you could do 1.04. I think I might go to 1.04. That will take me enough to a percent, go to the hundredths place. So I'm subtracting 1, I'm subtracting 1. We end up with, so you'll see that instead of doing 3 rad 3 here, I just go right to the decimal because you're going to have to simplify that anyways. Okay? So when I simplify that, I'm doing -1 plus or minus 1.04. And so -1 plus 1.04 is 4 hundredths. Okay? And -1 minus, that becomes -2 hundredths, and interest would never be negative. So my answer is 4 hundredths, and you have to convert that to a percent because interest rates are percent, so it's really 4% interest. So what happened was I started with $500. I left it in the bank for 2 years, and it made interest for me. When I pulled it out, I got $540. All right, so that's that. You've got some advanced problems from the B problems, so I'm going to go over one of those as well. All right, now this was number 52, so I want you to kind of look at some of these and see if you can do any of these. Even try just the odds at least, but definitely being able to do the interest problems, you should be able to do that with a calculator. So when you get something like this, the first thing I'm going to have to do is just divide both sides by 2, and now I've got my perfect square all alone. Now I'm going to root both sides, and I get the absolute value of 3x plus 1 is equal to 2. To lose that, I'm going to do 3x plus 1 equals plus or minus 2. I'm subtracting 1. I get -1 plus or minus 2 is equal to 3x. I'm going to divide by 3, and we get x equals -1 plus or minus 2 all over 3. Now what this really means is -1 over 3 plus or minus 2 over 3. They're both over 3. We have to divide both sides. So I'm doing -1 over 3 plus 2 over 3 and -1 over 3 minus 2 over 3. So we get positive 1 over 3, and here we're going to get -3 over 3, and that makes 1/3 or -1. All right. So basically, today's lesson is just go back over those compound interest problems and try some of the beach problems. Okay? That's it.